For anyone paying attention to the absolute state of Disney over the past decade, you might have noticed that the magical kingdom has become more of a magical Queendom!
So my name's Nick. I'm one of Fairy Godmother's apprentices. I'm here to shop you around and make all your selections for the day.
Our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda.
So you'd think when Disney acquired Fox in 2019 and subsequently their subsidiary Blue Sky Studios, they would have jumped at the chance to encourage a movie that's been sold as the second coming of gay Christ.
Put a ticket in and make her name it gay!
But turns out they weren't really on board with the whole thing.
Oh no! What happened? Oh no, how terrible! That's just awful! How terrible! Oh no!
Wow. It's almost like Disney's activism is entirely performative and just a way to sell garbage to stupid people who will clap at anything that reflects their own beliefs back at them, but that's also inconsequential enough that it can be cut for overseas audiences. Gee, who'd have thunk it?
It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic.
But Nimona eventually did manage to claw its way into a release thanks to the purveyor of all great entertainment, Netflix. So, is Nimona really the queerest must-see movie of the century? Well, let's jump in. The story is about Ballister, a commoner and soon-to-be knight who has the kingdom up in arms as tradition dictates that only the descendants of the kingdom's original protectors are allowed to become knights. But the queen has decided to allow Ballister to be knighted, opening the floodgates for anyone who can prove they're worthy to wield the blade in defense of the kingdom. But just as the crowd is cheering and chanting his name, his sword turns into a laser and blasts a hole straight through her. Come on guys, I already lost Liz, I'm not emotionally prepared to lose another queen. Ballister's boyfriend, Ambrosius Goldenloin, yes, that's actually what they decided to call him because I guess Treacle Tastycock was already taken, quick on the draw takes the most rational course of action. Not knocking the sword out of his hand, but instead severing Ballister's arm at the shoulder. Call me crazy, but I don't think amputation is the most efficient way to turn off an autonomously firing laser beam. Perhaps Ballister was critical of the latest season of RuPaul's Drag Race, and this was just the harbouring resentment boiling over. Either way, this gives Ballister an opportunity to escape and apparently shrug off a severed limb like it's a minor inconvenience.
'Tis but a scratch. A scratch? Your arm's off. No, it isn't. Well, what's that then? I've heard worse.
Now in hiding and branded a villain by the kingdom, he soon draws the attention of Nimona, a character whose personality is a combination of manic pixie dream girl and lol so random, with a healthy coating of unhinged and murderous tendencies.
Whoa, yeah! Sick arm! Did it bleed a lot?
What?
Did they let you keep the old one?
No, let go! What's wrong with you?
Nimona pleads with Ballister to be his villainous sidekick, but gets shut down quicker than a Jamie Oliver restaurant.
Emotional damage!
Ballister leaves and gets thrown in jail, which sounds like I just skipped over 2 pages in the script, but I swear that's the entirety of what happens. Nimona rescues him and we learn that she can shapeshift, which precedes a pretty enjoyable and chaotic escape scene. Nimona's shape-changing makes action scenes fun and engaging, though not particularly suspenseful as she comes off as all but untouchable.
Something, 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 we win.
Back at the lair, Ballister confronts Nimona about being a monster, a word she doesn't take kindly to.
You're a monster.
Do not call me that!
Nimona's personality doesn't align with her actions. She resents being called a monster, but what she says and how she behaves can only be described as monstrous.
If you see anyone,
Murder 'em.
hide! If you see anyone, hide!
Deciding the squire probably knows something, they kidnap him for interrogation, where it's revealed that Ballister was set up by the director, the leader of the institute. I'd pretend to be shocked, but she's one of only 2 named white characters in the movie. The first being Todd, an unrepentant douchebag and elitist bully who's had everything handed to him as a birthright from his bloodline.
Or like, did you think I was gonna apologize for how I treated you? Oh my god, that's hilarious. You're so stupid. I love it. It's so funny. Hey, everybody! Ballister thought I was gonna apologize for treating him like the trash that he is.
And the director, a xenophobic authoritarian hell-bent on eliminating anything she considers unnatural. Through the lens of intersectional politics, it's not difficult to guess who's going to be the good guys and who's going to be the bad guys. Sure, Nimona spends most of her time as a white girl too, but you might have noticed her entire character as an allegory for a certain protected identity. It's pretty subtle though, so maybe you didn't spot it.
What are you?
I'm Nimona.
Can you just be you, please? Girl, you.
But I'm not a girl.
I just think it'd be easier if you were a girl.
Easier for who?
I'm just trying to understand what I'm working with here.
I'm Nimona.
And now you're a boy.
I am today. Then I shapeshift. And I'm free.
What if you held it in? if you didn't shapeshift?
I'd die. I wouldn't die. I just sure wouldn't be living.
Yep, as subtle as anthrax and about half as pleasant to be around. So they confront the director and Pudding Lovelygroin with proof of Ballister's innocence, which gets immediately shot out of his hand and destroyed. You'd think in a world of flying cars, laser beams, and holographic projections, the concept of backing up a video file would be pretty obvious. But then we wouldn't get another action scene, this time with a draconic cereal mascot. You start to wonder if the reason the movie has so many action scenes is just to give Nimona something to do. Despite being the titular character, she has no stakes in the plot. She's only helping Ballister because she's bored, and whether his innocence is proven or not, she can walk away at any point and lose nothing. She has no real goals or motivations, just a desire for chaos and violence that Ballister has to constantly rein in until it's beneficial to let her go wild.
You want to know who the kid is?
Oh, I like where this is going.
You want to show him?
I'd love to.
Let's break stuff.
So with their only piece of evidence destroyed, what options do Ballister and Nimona have left? Just get another piece of evidence, of course. Turns out when you can perfectly disguise yourself as anyone else, it's pretty easy to trick someone into confessing, upload it to fake YouTube, and pass the time with a completely unnecessary dance montage. I guess it makes sense they could do this, but it feels like 10 minutes of the movie that didn't need to exist, and it'll make even less sense going forward. Anyway, things inevitably take a turn when the director claims the footage of her confession was actually faked by Nimona shapeshifting into her, a claim made all the more convincing since the recording seems to only be 3 seconds long and completely omit Nimona and Ballister, so no one knows who recorded it. Though you'd think the uploader's name being Ballastar12 would tip them off. Things get even worse when the director gives Sweetness Rigid Penis a 1,000-year-old scroll depicting Nimona as Glorif's monster. He confronts Ballister with it, Ballister returns to Nimona with the scroll, and this is the point in the movie things stop making sense. Neither character really handles themselves well here. Nimona never outright denies anything, only replying with questioning statements and telling him to think. Ballister arguably handles it even worse, doing a complete 180 on Nimona for no real reason, going as far as to call her a monster.
Because you're not a sidekick. You're a...
What? I'm a what?
You know what you are.
This is why getting the director's confession hurts the movie, because Ballister was there for it, he recorded it, he knows without a doubt that the director was behind everything. If the only proof he'd seen was the recording of the director switching the swords, then when confronted with evidence of Nimona being Glorif's monster, it wouldn't be a stretch to convince him that maybe it was Nimona disguised as a director, especially since she seems to thrive off chaos and destruction and has a grudge against the kingdom.
You think this stops with the director? You should be questioning everything right now. The will of Glorith, the Institute, the wall? What's it all really for?
So, overcome with emotion and fleeing the Institute, Nimona has a flashback to 1,000 years ago as a shapeshifter looking for a place to belong, before eventually befriending a human girl, only to have the village turn on her, and just to make sure Nimona is completely free of blame, it's a torch thrown by a villager which bounces off Nimona that starts the fire, because the only people who can ever do anything wrong are those filthy bigots. Honestly, the most surprising thing about this scene is that the villagers aren't all white, so I guess well done movie, but it turns out the girl Nimona befriended is Glorif, the legendary figure who would go on to build the kingdom and found the knights who would defend it from monsters. So I guess that's a third named white character in the movie now, all of which are bad guys. But look at her, with her blonde hair and blue eyes. She's basically a Nazi. I mean, who else talks like that?
Go back to the shadows from whence you came.
Nimona freaks out, turns into a giant monster, and starts rampaging through the city, destroying buildings and nearly killing people. The movie expects us to feel sorry for her at this point, but what's the message here supposed to be? It's okay to be a monster and kill people if someone hurts your feelings? When she gets to the statue of Glorif and attempts to unalive herself, it's supposed to be a big tragic moment, but she's destroyed half the city at this point for no real reason. It's not like she has any morality to back up her actions. There's no villain to stop or person to save forcing her into the kingdom, so when she's attacked it's completely justified since all she's doing is making her own emotional turmoil everyone else's problem, until Ballister calms her down with a few cliched allegorical lines.
I see you, Nimona. And you're not alone.
But the director is having none of this and decides to shoot the cannon into the kingdom, which will take out half the city, but at least it'll kill Nimona. And at this point, I can't say I disagree with her. Yeah, the director's evil, but that doesn't make Nimona good, and when she turns into a phoenix and flies into the laser to save the city, All I can think is, you get what you deserve. The city was in danger as a direct retaliation to your rampage. The least you could do is take responsibility for your own actions. But the movie ends showing us that Nimona's sacrifice has her hailed as a hero, and the whole kingdom loves her. We also get that gay kiss that Disney wasn't on board with, but the writers desperately wanted to make sure children saw grown men kissing, so there it is. There's the smooches. Oh, and the final shot of the movie is Nimona coming back to life off screen, because this was never a story about sacrifice and how goodness can come from anyone, even if they're different. It's a story about how if you're intolerant to someone, they're allowed to turn into a giant monster and destroy you.
I say the whole world must learn of our peaceful ways. By force.
So that's Nimona, and if you'll indulge me, there are still a couple of things I want to reflect on. Like I mentioned before, there are only 3 white characters with names in the movie, and all of them are bad people. But there's one in particular I want to focus on. Todd.
Crispy! Wait, what?
See, in the graphic novel that Nimona is based on, Todd doesn't exist. He's a character created exclusively for the movie. But why? Well, to answer that question, we have to look to Ambrosius, aka Sweetness Glitterschlong. In the graphic novel, Ambrosius is white, an intentional decision by the author, as he's supposed to be a representation of white privilege. He's a deeply flawed person who is clinging to his version of the world that he wants to be true, shutting everything out to the point of behaving villainously, whether he thinks that or not. But for the movie, they really wanted to make him East Asian because he is ultimately a good guy, and I guess good guys can't be white. Also, this meant they could have a Pakistani Korean gay romance, hitting levels of diversity we'd only imagined. So because a gay Asian guy obviously isn't allowed to be flawed, they separated Ambrosius into another character, Todd, who embodies Ambrosius's less desirable traits. You know, like being white.
High five!
Bruh.
Another thing I want to talk about is Ballister's arm, because now we have an interracial, homosexual, cross-class, disabled romance.
Stop! My penis can only get so erect.
But that's the funny thing about disabled representation. Let's ignore the fact Ballister walked off an amputation and built a new arm from scrap metal in a tower like a medieval Tony Stark. In a good show like Avatar The Last Airbender, Toph is blind, but using earthbending she can see through vibrations, making her just as effective as anyone else. But there were moments where there were things she just couldn't do. Moments where her disability actually disabled her.
Why? Because you think I can't put up posters on my own? It's upside down, isn't it?
But when a progressive writer represents disability, the script is written so that they're never put in a situation where their disability would actually affect them, and they must be shown as equally or even more capable than an able-bodied person. Progressive writers will never write a scene where Captain Hook has to peel an orange or open a bowl. Ballister never suffers in any way from having a robot arm. His robot arm functions no different to a normal arm. He gets it taken away for like 5 seconds during the prison scene, but it's in a situation where he's just standing around talking, so it makes no difference if he has an arm or not.
You had to take the arm, huh?
Nimona is a fun but flawed movie. The art style looks amazing, and the design of the kingdom that combines sci-fi technology with medieval concepts is really cool. Nimona is a lot of fun at the start of the movie, but her one joke of extreme violence becomes monotonous quickly, and trying to marry that personality to a character we're supposed to feel sympathetic for doesn't work. She should have either remained simplistically violent for comedic effect, or been portrayed as quirky though well-intentioned throughout. Ballister does a great job as a straight man for the first half of the movie, but takes a sudden shift almost exactly at the halfway point, suddenly becoming more relaxed and carefree until a sudden shift again towards the end. And despite the plot revolving around him and being the one who actually has stakes in it, even though it definitely feels like it should be his story, he ends up as a passive observer for the most part, which is a shame since I found myself quite enjoying Ballister as a character and wanting to see him succeed. It was difficult to get into the story since the heavy-handed messaging would keep pulling you out to remind you of real-world social issues, which is unfortunate because unlike most movies like this, instead of being political activism disguised as a movie, this was more like a movie with a thick coat of political activism. There's something great in there. If some scenes were cut or moved around and if characters were better developed, this could have been a really strong story for everyone. But without any strong universal morals everyone can enjoy, Nimona is unlikely to stay relevant beyond the year it was released.
I'm Nimona.
That explains literally nothing.